From SGI USA, I'm Cassidy Bradford, and this is Buddhability, the weekly series where I talk with Buddhists from all walks of life about the power we each have to change our lives and the world around us.
My name's Brigid Perry. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm 31 years old and I work as a nurse in the emergency room.
Yay, Brigid! I'm so glad. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining for the podcast. So we can just start by you telling me a little bit about yourself, your life growing up, and then how you ended up encountering Buddhism.
Yeah, so I'm the youngest of 5 kids. I have 2 sisters, 2 brothers, and then I'm the baby, which has a lot to do with my experience. So when I was around 25 years old, I was working my first real world job, and my older sister had been practicing Buddhism for around 4 years, but I didn't know anything about it because I never really asked. I think I saw changes in her, although I don't know that I was communicating that or anything. But so when I was 25, I think this is funny, and it has to do with my whole experience. The whole reason I went to my first discussion meeting was because I wanted something from my sister. She got a free tablet from Verizon. You know, when you get a new phone and they were just giving things away. So She said she would give it to me. And I was like, sweet. When can I get it from you? On Saturday. And she said, well, I'm going to a chanting meeting at 10 or 11. And then we can hang out. And I was like, oh, I'll just come to the meeting. So I think part of me was seeking something, because I was, like I said, 25, first real world job. I had started doing therapy for a couple years, but I still was pretty unhappy. You know, when you start doing therapy and you're okay, I'm so aware of all these things that I'm doing wrong, especially in relationships, the same things kept happening. And so I felt like I had a lot of things about my life that I wanted to change, but I wasn't able to do it. I was just aware that I was maybe had these patterns that I didn't like. So basically I wanted the tablet. I went to the discussion meeting and I heard this experience about this young woman who was sharing about all my friends have these impressive jobs, these new boyfriends, and woe is me, I have nothing. And I was like, oh, okay. My ears really perked up, and obviously her experience ended up really being encouraging. She, in Buddhism, we talk about being the protagonist of our own life. And so she shared about how she really became an active participant in her life and really chased her dreams and chanted about how to do that. And so at the end of the experience, she had gotten her dream job in New York and she was moving away. And so when I heard that experience, I was just really hooked on the idea that, we can, the things that we don't like, we don't have to just complain about and make a joke about. Because that was kind of my MO, just to make a joke out of everything. And I had great friends at the time, but we just would, complain together and vent to each other. So after my first discussion meeting, I really wanted to learn more and to chant. So that's how I encountered Buddhism.
That's really, I love what you pointed out about you had gained sort of this awareness of, oh, okay, these are things that are causing me to be unhappy, but not really having a way to actually change it. Because I do feel of course this is not to knock therapy at all, but I found my Buddhist practice is the fuel to actually make real sustainable changes, and so the two together are a really powerful kind of tool or process. But from that moment that you were first at a discussion meeting and oh, okay, this is interesting, I'm interested in this person's experience, did you start chanting right away? Were you all in, or meh, I don't know yet?
Not really. I'm bad at commitment. Like, I would go through phases like with exercise, or, like be really into spin for a little while, then drop it, and then be really into yoga and then drop it. And so I was actually really nervous to commit to chanting because I didn't want to, make this big commitment to all the people at the meeting or my sister and then just change my mind in like a month. So I didn't really chant at first. I remember chanting a couple times to myself here and there, but I just kept following my sister to meetings in that like first month or so. And then, people asked if I wanted to start my own practice, and I like nervously said yes. And everyone, encouraged me that, I can just start and see what happens. And so that's what I did. So it's been like 6.5 years and haven't turned back yet. So it's been going well.
I mean, it really is like, you are deciding like, okay, this is how I want to live my life now. This is the life philosophy that I want to apply to my daily life. So of course it is like my life really wants to do this, but maybe I'm a little bit nervous, or I'm a little bit afraid to like really, take full responsibility for my happiness, because that can be kind of intimidating. We're going to be talking a lot about family. It's interesting that you encountered Buddhism through family, because, like I said, that's what we're really going to be focusing on today, is like family relationships. So I think, like, to provide just some context, could you tell me just, a bit about your family and your relationships with people in your family?
So like I said, I'm the youngest of 5, and we're all like 2 years apart. So we're all pretty close in age. And I had a lot of fun growing up. Like, I mean, I think we were all, if you were to ask me 6 years ago how my family was, I would have said we were close. Now, having had so many experiences using my practice, now I see that there was a lot of tension, not because of any one thing in particular, but I think just like I grew up, my parents got divorced when I was like around 10 years old. And prior to that, my dad worked as a merchant marine, so he was gone for like half of the year. He worked really hard, but he was gone for like 6 months out of the year. So the way I grew up was just a little bit different. And I think my house was just kind of chaotic. Like, it was filled with love and filled with so much fun. And I, have the best, the funniest, I think the 4 funniest siblings in the world. I think we were all close. We all got along, but then we're all very different, obviously. But through practicing and through like really appreciating, her life and everyone else's lives, like that's how everything really changed in my family. So.
I think about my own family too. Like, I mean, I had like a great childhood. I had, like I loved my family. But then I think like as I really started to deepen my practice, I saw like ways that, but like, this relationship, there's great things about it, but there are things that are still kind of like challenging or causing tension. And the thing about family is like, these are people that know me the best, that I love so much, but also like they see all of my, negativity or whatever, or, they see me through all kind of life stages and emotions. So I know like when you started practicing and your sister and I think your mom were practicing all at the time, like you were seeing some shifts, in your family, but I know there were definitely still like some challenges that you were going through. So maybe you can tell me about, I think there's one relationship in particular, I think that was kind of the like, I don't know what the right way to say is, but like, here's a clear thing to work on, or here's a clear way to challenge like my family relationship. So maybe you can just, tell me about that story.
Yeah. It's really cool to look back. Actually, I've like looked back at old experiences that my mom and sister both shared in the practice, and they revolved around like family harmony, which is like the first, guideline in our Buddhist practice, which I think is so cool, faith for a harmonious family. So, my mom shared an experience at a meeting once about her relationship with my brother. And he's the middle child. His name is Dan. And he and my mom especially had a really tense relationship. There was a period of like 2 years that he didn't talk to any of us except my sister Meg. So after we reconnected, this was, over 4 years ago, we were like back in touch, everybody, but it was still definitely disconnected. Like so much had changed. I think we were all closer in a more genuine way. I think we were trying to accept each other for who we were. But in like 2022, my brother, he was in touch with us, but he was away for a long time. He was like traveling all over the country. He's been to like all 50 states. Actually, he worked at a tie-dye factory at one point. This is a sweatshirt he like sent me. Like he worked just like so many. He was kind of a nomad, like worked odd jobs and was traveling all over. So although we were all in touch, we hadn't seen him in like over a year, maybe 2 years. So we came back home in 2022 and he was really sick. And he came home because he needed help and he like knew that, but he had just gotten really sick. Like it's kind of hard to put a label on it. You know, I think it was a combination of like physical and mental health stuff, maybe like fueling each other, but he had lost a lot of weight and he did not look good. I think that he wouldn't mind if I said that. And so we were all like really worried and kind of scared when he came home because we didn't know how we could help him. And it was so after we all like saw each other, I remember my sisters and I all FaceTimed, kind of like a conference call of like, okay, how do we help Dan? And we're just talking in circles, you know, all making our own suggestions and, you know, oh, should we encourage him to get a job? Should we encourage him to come live with me? Or, you know, might want to, or you, or whatever. Trying to, you know, brainstorm. And my sister Meg, who, you know, had been practicing for a long time and also like has always like really been in like, I say like the world of faith, really knew that, you know, okay, we can't control him. And we were all kind of like, all right, shoot. You know, because that's
even though we want to,
we just wanted him to be okay, but all of the like concern and worry really came out, or I think it was disguised as concern and worry, but really we wanted to control him and make sure that he was, you know, that we could see him, that he was close enough, you know, in Massachusetts or wherever, that we could make sure that he was okay. So by the end of the phone call, we had gone through all the options and decided that, you know, the only thing we can do is pray for him. And so we made like a daimoku campaign. So we chant Nam-myoho-renge-kyo every day. And we made a goal together. You know, okay, let's chant 30 minutes for Dan every day. And we would send each other encouragement, you know, we would send each other like the green check mark, like, okay, we did it every day. And so after 2 weeks, my mom had also joined us. So basically after 2 weeks of chanting, my brother made a doctor's appointment. He got like mass health insurance, which is like a pain to get. So we were all so excited. Like I really felt like, oh, you know, there's actual proof of my prayer that when we all, you know, really united on one vision of wanting the best for him, that, you know, things were moving forward. Yeah.
So when you were like chanting for him, what kind of things were you like chanting about? Like I'm thinking for somebody who is like newer to Buddhism or hasn't tried chanting yet, like emotionally, how did you feel? Were you like, stressed out? Did chanting for him make you feel at ease?
I feel like it did make me feel at ease because I felt like I was doing something for him without logistically taking control of the situation. So I feel like it did give me freedom in that way. Although to be completely honest, even though we were all really worried, I didn't care that much that this all was happening. And I say that with love, you know, to my brother, but I was really like, oh, this is like inconvenient that he's sick and we're all so concerned. And so when I chanted, I don't think it was this like deep and noble prayer of like, oh, you know, like, I think it was just like, okay, I want to help my family. this is really annoying. And so it all started. The thing I love about chanting is that we don't have to fake anything. Like, you know, I think of it as like writing in my diary. So when I chant, I'm thinking about all the things that I'm actually thinking. And naturally, you know, when we chant Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, our lives progress in like the direction of our happiness. So I don't have to strategize too much when I chant of, I hope specifically this has to happen. Although honestly, I also was like sad, I think, when I was really chanting about it. And so it was hard. Sometimes you don't want to chant about the things that like bring up pain. And even though those are the most important things in your life at the time. But one thing that helped me, because I think I knew that I was going to struggle chanting about it, I just said, okay, this 30 minutes or this time that I'm going to chant is dedicated to my brother. You know, so I would really still chant about other things, you know, work, relationships, money, whatever else I, you know, wanted at the time. But I just like dedicated that morning time to my brother. And so that felt more free to me at the time, if that makes sense. And so eventually, you know, when I got more into it or like deeper into my prayer, I think that's when a lot of the pain kind of came out, that, okay, I want him to be happy if he does this, this, and this. Like even my prayers were controlling him.
Yes.
And so it took, I think, a while to really stop having those exceptions when I was chanting for him. But for a long time, I would think, okay, I want him to be healthy, so we're not worried about him. I want him to get a job so we can all just go back to how everything was. You know, I want him to gain weight and to get a doctor's appointment and just be the way that we want him to be. You know, I'm not like proud to share all of that, you know, like it doesn't feel nice to have all these thoughts about your sibling that, you know, like you're supposed to love your family unconditionally, right? And I had all these conditions, even when I was chanting, right? So, but I also know from my practice that like when I'm completely honest, when I chant, that's when things start moving in my life. So even though I felt really guilty about all the things I was feeling, I knew that was the way to transform it. Like I couldn't pretend anymore, or couldn't deny it. And yeah.
I mean, thank you for sharing so honestly about it, because I think many of us can feel like, like guilt or shame about the way that we're actually feeling about a situation, you know? Like I think about my experience with my own family. Like I had very similar kind of struggle where like oftentimes I'd be chanting like, why are they like this? Like, I want them to be better so that, you know, I don't have to experience this pain anymore. I think that is really relatable, like in a lot of just human relationships, right? And of course, whatever our own tendencies are going to come out in experiences like this. So like you said, you're like wanting to control, even in the way that you're chanting, you know, chanting to control his behavior and actions. But with time, like you said, the more and more that you chant about it, you can transform that, you know, but it takes time, especially for like deeper stuff like this, right? Like sometimes you just have to chant like, okay, this is just how it is right now, and I'm going to keep chanting until something in my heart changes, you know?
Yeah. You know, thinking back to why I went to my first discussion meeting is so important, because with this family experience, it was still about me. Even though I was really chanting about my family, quote unquote, I was really chanting about myself of, okay, how can I make life easier for me? And I also cared about my family. Like both were true at the same time. So it's not like I'm a bad person because I was also worried about myself. Like, I mean, I know that's human nature. And in Buddhism, like, you know, it's not like something is right or wrong or good or bad. Like we all have, you know, all of that within our hearts. And so, but one thing that really changed when I was chanting, or like through my practice, to help me actually chant for my brother in a sincere way was like going to discussion meetings and sharing openly, which I'm like, I'm pretty, usually I'm a pretty open book, but with certain things, sometimes I get embarrassed about. Yeah. But one thing that really helped me, my sister, I was probably complaining or saying something, and she was like, no one wants to feel pitied. And that really like struck me, because even though we were caring so much and worried so much, it was really like we were pitying my brother, which if he knew that, he would not be happy. He would just say like, just stop. Don't even think about it. Don't even think about me. And so, I went to a discussion meeting and shared about, my brother and how I was worried and how I was chanting about him. And we were studying the concept of like cherry, plum, peach, and damson, which it's a famous one, basically saying that, all these fruits are very similar. Like they all have whatever, the same like pit, they're all like similar, but they all like flower differently. They're all unique in their own way. And so through Buddhism, I learned to appreciate myself for being unique and special, but I still was like actually really struggling to appreciate my family for being unique and special. Yes. In a Buddhist meeting, you would encounter so many different types of people, and that's so beautiful. It was so much easier in that context to appreciate all those people. But when it came to real life, I had such a hard time with it. And so like the concept of cherry, plum, peach, and damson, really, there's a quote that's like, cherries don't hate plums or get frightened by peaches. Each flower blossoms as only they can. Sure, we sometimes get stressed out by our own or others' shortcomings, but with Buddhist practice, we can take our worries about such things to the Gohonzon and learn to be true to ourselves. All our problems can become opportunities to strengthen our character and resolve. So, and Ikeda, Dasaku Ikeda, like the Buddhist philosopher that we talk about a lot, says, the prime mission of Buddhism is to enable each and all to blossom to the fullest of their potential. The fulfillment of the individual, however, cannot be realized in conflict with or at the expense of others, but only through active appreciation of uniqueness and like our differences. And so when I shared at a meeting when we were studying this concept, I realized like, yes, I am a cherry or a peach, or, I'm so special, but so is my brother. But at the time, I really couldn't understand him. Yeah. And so I wanted him to be like me. Where usually we talk about comparing each other. It's like, oh, I want to be like that person. I want to be more like, more type A, like so-and-so, or like more, but actually I wanted him to be like me, which is so egotistical to say, but I think, and so the two things, that were shared from my sister and then in my discussion meeting really helped me chant, because I actually was chanting about what I studied and, encouragement that I got, and to how to actualize that in my life. How can I chant so that I no longer pity my brother, who is just fine without me, by the way. He was not, he was struggling, yes, but he was not saying that he needed me to do anything special. Like he just wanted us to be there for him. But
yeah. So when you started like applying that kind of study and guidance, did you start feeling any different with your, like, did anything change in your relationship with him?
Yeah. So I remember the first time feeling really excited when I was chanting for him. And it was when, I was chanting, okay, I want him to be happy, like no matter what that looks like, which I actually meant. So I heard at a meeting recently, someone shared an experience, and he said, chanting isn't like faking this positive attitude, but really when we chant, like we can change how we feel without ignoring the fact that, we might feel X, Y, and Z. Like we can really transform it. So I transformed all this like pity and guilt into like genuine hope. And so I, for the first time, was really excited about, oh, he can, he has his own unique mission.
Yeah.
And so do I, and they're going to be so different. And was actually excited to see what his was. And so around this time, maybe he had been home for like a year, and he lived with my dad. He lived with my brother. Like, every family member was really doing so much to try to help him. He was bouncing around Massachusetts. And so it was like a year and a half ago that I went through a breakup. After going through the breakup, I was really relying on my sister's help with my dog, and just like really struggling to get by because I work nights as a nurse. And so if I worked a bunch of shifts in a row, my dog would get sick or I don't know. He was picking up on the nervous energy that I had at home or something. So yeah. I was like, it became such a source of anxiety. Oh my God, what am I going to do with Otto? And then I'd be chanting, I want to do this, be able to, do this alone and not depend on anybody. Like, because after going through a breakup, I really didn't want to have to rely on others. And so, but actually when I was chanting, I thought, okay, I can ask Dan for help. And so it was just a simple thing, but because he was not able to work at the time, he was very available schedule wise. So and so, I thought, I asked him for help, and he started like coming by to help me, and he would stay with Otto, and it was like such a weight off my shoulders. And so a few things happened, although I initially, wanted to not rely on anybody. I, realized, how much my brother can help me, and that I can still chant, to figure this out on my own and everything. He started helping me out a lot. He was, coming over every week, like maybe one night, 2 nights, sometimes like 3 in a row for like several months. And we started to spend a lot of time together. So we would like walk my dog together. We'd make food together. The combination of factors of him being here and maybe my disposition a little bit, everything was just more relaxed. And I also really needed his help. So it was cool because he was, appreciating me. Okay, thanks. I'm getting a little break from, he felt like he was putting everybody out. I actually needed his help. So so immediately I was so appreciative. And that was the first time I really, had to rely on him. And he, at a time when like my trust had been completely broken, he became like the most dependable person in my life. Like I would, call him I would go to work at 7:00 and I'd call him at like 5:30, be like, my schedule, I thought I had someone to come over to take him out. Can you come over tonight? And he'd be like, okay, I'll take the bus. Like he'd be there. And additionally, we spent so much time together, watching TV. Like I used to think we were so different. And this was something I challenged with, my other siblings too. So I thought, oh, we're never going to find a show that we want to watch together, because our interests are so different.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it sounds a little silly, but it was really like, we ended up watching Modern Family. So shout out to Modern Family, because it actually really brought us together. And,
wow.
Other things too on TV, but we were like making food together, and he started eating all my, leftovers and, watching Otto. And I was in such an emotional turmoil. Still really struggling with the relationship stuff. And so I would live in a studio apartment. And so, if I was sad, like, he would know I was sad. And so I would like break down in tears or, just be struggling. And so like I ended up opening up to him so much. And I always knew he was like a kind person. Like I knew that about him, but I never really needed him to be that kind to me, or I always had good friends, and I still am lucky in that way. But to have him be like right there when maybe I didn't want anyone there, like seeing how much I was struggling, he just was like so patient with me. you know, I expected him to be like, oh, can you stop crying, you know, or like, I was used to our family, like, you know, kind of rubbing against each other in the wrong way. It felt like we were mending years of issues, just like him being able to be there for me. And I just appreciated him so much. So I think my prayer for him was reaching him. And also, you know, as I was chanting for him and had this idea to ask him for help, like, it was not a strategy that I could have thought of, oh, this is going to repair our relationship. This is going to help our family. Like, no, like, it was not a strategy that I could have thought of that was going to solve any problem. It was really just Nam-myoho-renge-kyo. So something that just happened kind of mystically or unexplainably that really ended up shifting so much in our family, I think.
I mean, it's incredible too that, like, kind of this situation or this, like, time in your lives started out with you feeling kind of like, pity for him, wanting to control him, like this sort of, this dynamic. And then as you chanted and your perspective changed, the way you felt changed, then, like, in a sense, I imagine that kind of allowed then this new dynamic to really be, exist and be, like, safe and allow you to feel, like, really safe and comfortable asking for support from him. And I mean, it's really like a very, I feel like, very deep kind of like relational change, you know, as your, like, relationship with him is really, like, mending and you're feeling very different. Were there things that you were starting to see more clearly about yourself or about your family and, like, who you are in family relationships, like any kind of learnings in that way?
From a very young age, you know, it was all about me, even though I also loved my family and thought they were really cool. And so when I made the shift, like, while chanting and in my heart, to really genuinely care. And I would chant, like, I would, you know, start chanting. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to chant until I really care about this, you know, really care about this person. And I would do that, you know, not just for my family, but, you know, maybe other people that would annoy me or something. Because I think my tendency was to just avoid and not really care too much. Like, you know, how I felt when my family, or how I felt when, you know, Dan initially was not talking to us. I was like, whatever, I got other stuff going on, you know? And so I think in my practice, I started to show up more authentically, like, to really care about my life and about the lives of my family. And then, you know, other problems came up. So it caused me to chant a lot about the relationships with my mom and my sister, and my dad, you know, really everyone in my family. And I would chant, you know, how can I, not like, what am I doing wrong, but like, how can I do my human revolution to really have a happy family? Like, I saw, you know, as my relationship changed with my brother, like, I also saw, you know, that my mom was changing so much. And so I saw, like, her changing, and, like, I saw her and my brother both, like, relaxing around each other. And she would call me and say, like, oh, we actually had such a fun day. You know, it wasn't a stressful time. And my parents reconnected, you know, through my brother's illness. They've been, you know, divorced for almost 20 years. And they would, you know, text each other and call each other, you know, about my brother. And that was around the time my brother was actually, he was doing really well, like, you know, gaining weight, feeling much healthier, feeling stronger, and he got a job. And so for him to, you know, feel strong enough to be able to work again was, like, such a big deal. And so, so anyways, so I felt like my family was really actually in a genuine way, like, uniting. Meanwhile, though, you know, I was just still really struggling with my relationship, like, on and off again, or it didn't really matter, like, what was going on. I was just, like, having such a hard time in my practice. I was still going to meetings and trying hard because I knew that when I exerted myself in like my Buddhist practice, like things moved in my life. But I was like just so over it. I was like, felt like no matter how hard I tried, that I was just going to be like stuck. And I was just like really obsessing over the future. I'm 31 years old and my dream is, to be a mother and have a family. And so like having all this, going through the breakup and since like having not really knowing what was going to happen, I felt like I couldn't think about anything else. So like, it was really hard to chant, or talk about when like something's painful, like I don't even want to chant about it. And even though I was chanting about my family, so like my prayer, was like faith for a harmonious family. So like, okay, I'm going to build this family harmony. But actually, through chanting, I realized that even though it felt like such like a sweet prayer, I was still like so distracted by the future. I was like, if I change my family now, then I can be happy later, especially when it came to chanting. Like that was the only thing on my mind. Like, how can I not like suffer with this anymore? And I like volunteered to share an experience because so much had changed in my family that I did want to share about it. But also I was having such tunnel vision about like my romantic life and my future family that I wanted to like shatter that, I wanted to like break through that tunnel vision, which I feel like that's the biggest thing that, chanting does for me. So I wanted to make a cause of like, okay, I want to make a cause for my family to be happy and to really care about that again, because right now all I care about is myself. So as I was preparing to share my experience about my family, I was really chanting like, oh, okay, like this whole time with my brother, I was appreciating, oh, this is my family, like my brother is so cool. He knows so much and he cares about me so much. And same with, my sisters and my mom, like even when we struggled and like bickered a little bit, oh, why are they so frustrated with me? Because they care about me so much, And so that helped me chant to like really repair things when things were not going well. And I felt like I was able to like transform something to be like, okay, how can I accept them for who they are? So anyways, as I was preparing to share my experience and really chanting about my family, I shared, this experience at a meeting at our Buddhist community center. And I was so happy and felt like, okay, sharing this experience and doing any activity in Buddhism is making a cause. It's not because it is because I'm excited to share this, but also because I am struggling. I want to, this is me kind of making a stand of, okay, I want to change something in my life. I want to encourage others with my experience, but also I still have so much that I want to change, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I shared my experience August 5th. And then the following weekend, my sister was visiting with my nephews. And so I was like, okay, this experience is going to be a cause, for like a really like joyful visit with my family. And so like the human revolution really like transformed something deep inside me of like getting excited about supporting my family. And so I was chanting like, how can I make this like such an awesome visit for everybody to remember? And especially for my sister, who was putting so much effort to come visit with her husband and her kids, putting everyone in the car for like 8-9 hours.
Wow.
And so it's not like this crazy thing, but I offered to pick up my dad. And so I was really excited because normally visiting my dad becomes an extra like expenditure for my sister because he has health issues and has an eye disease and can no longer see, so he can't drive. And so basically I offered to pick up my dad, which required, several hours in the car. But I was really excited to do that, which was a very big change for me. It sounds like such a subtle thing, but I think that is Buddhism. It's like all these subtle changes in our heart, like
100%.
Translate into like these beautiful outcomes. So anyways, I pick up my dad and he says, you know, is your mom going to be there? Am I going to see her? And my mom had kind of said, given us the afternoon with him. You know, she wanted to make sure he got to spend a lot of time with my nephews. But long story short, we end up all getting together. So my brother, his wife, my sister, my two sisters, my brother-in-law, my two nephews, my mom and dad, like all together. My brother Dan, like we FaceTimed him because he was at his job in South Dakota. And we were just like giggling, and my brother texted me being like, I'm like jumping for joy. I'm so happy.
Wow.
And so like my parents hadn't seen each other in 10 years. Like since my sister's wedding, like 10 years almost to the date. And so I never would have imagined. It was not even part of my thoughts in my brain to be like, I hope my parents can be in the same room together. Like it just wasn't even a thing. And I don't think that they were thinking about it either.
Yeah.
But I think all the efforts, like, you know, in Buddhism, like we talk about the interconnectedness of life, and the main point of my experience that I want to like put out there is not like I did this magical thing and then everyone around me behaved in a way that made me happy. Like really, I did my human revolution. I chanted and really looked at myself, and it took a lot. And I'm still looking, I'm still chanting about it. But I appreciated everybody for who they are. You know, everyone was changing at the same time. And so it was, so really, you know, it's because we're so interconnected that one little shift in my life, you know, resulted in a slightly different interaction here and there. And then we all were together. And I think it just showed like how all the puzzle pieces fit together, I think. And one other thing, this experience has helped me like not want to take credit for things, even though I'm sharing this experience. So it's kind of counterintuitive. So I just want to, I did, you know, even like offering, like quote unquote, like offering my brother help, even though he was really helping me, or like offering my dad a ride. Like I didn't want to take credit for it, which was a big change. It wasn't about just me anymore. It was like, it was really exciting to care about my family. And that's the like change in my heart that happened. And I felt it back from them, you know?
Yeah.
That and it's not like, oh, look what Brigid did. It was like, look what we're all doing. And that was like so beautiful. And we had a lot of fun, and I initially thought it was going to be a short visit. With my dad, he initially said, oh, you know, I can only spend a couple hours out of the house, and then, you know, I'll go back. And I was okay with that, you know. And then we ended up spending like 8 hours all together, having dinner together, like going back to my childhood home.
Oh my
all
gosh.
Together, and taking like so many photos together. And oh my God, I felt, and my sisters and I just kept looking at each other like we like couldn't believe our eyes. Just like, it was so cool. Oh, yeah, it was awesome.
Wow, that is so beautiful. I really, what I love about your experience and, you know, just hearing it today in our conversation is like you can see how like each little shift with time, right, can then lead to like totally different kind of, you know, your family being in a very different place through each person's effort. Even, the effort to, I'll pick him up. I'll pick my dad up instead. Which I feel like we talk about this a lot on Buddhability. Like it can seem so small in the moment, but those things that are just like whatever our tendencies are, the way we behave, the actions we take are so deeply entrenched in who we are. So when we make a different decision, that really is huge, because it's so much easier to just continue with whatever way we normally react, whatever decision we normally do. So every time we make even a slightly different decision, it's like kind of changing the road that we're on, you know, from that point forward. That's something that I really appreciate about your experience, is like hearing all of those kind of moments of like, also very like honest kind of like battle, you know.
Yeah.
with our like tendencies, you know. Buddhism isn't like this neat and tidy like, wow, everything is perfect, you know, like it can be hard.
Yeah, that sums it up nicely. I think one other thing, during the visit, I actually felt like so present with them, which is not a word I ever really understood or would have used, because I just a year prior, you know, when my nephew was born, I was so self-absorbed into what was going on in my life that, like, of course I like loved him, but I was like, could not appreciate or be present in that moment. Like, I was still like heartbroken and sad, and you know, I was so excited to be with my new nephew and my sister, but you know, I was like, my life was like I was still so tunnel visioned. Yeah. And so like just a year later, you know, being able to celebrate with my family and actually not think about, if only this were different, you know, I actually was like, this is awesome. And so that was like the biggest shift, I think, that I could actually just enjoy my family.
I'm so glad you shared about feeling present and not like, wrapped up in worries or, you know, whatever is really like, whatever kind of suffering we're going through. Because, to be able to like be really present and enjoy our present moment in life, rather than thinking like, oh, if only things were different or in the future, I'll be happy. No, Buddhism is about being happy right where we are, regardless of, you know, whatever our circumstances are. So that kind of breakthrough too is just really like very empowering, very empowering.
Yeah, like chanting really like you can create hope. And so I felt like through this whole, especially recent experience, even though my circumstances, you know, romantically, like, I still don't know what's the future may hold, but I just don't feel as hopeless or obsessed, which feels so free. I'm still thinking about it and I'm still chanting about it, but it feels like not as heavy, and that makes me really happy.
So like throughout, you know, all of these experiences with your family, have there been any like pieces of Buddhist study or concept that have really like helped you break through or understand things differently?
Yeah, there's one of my friends who practices sent me this quote from New Human Revolution, Volume 1. Nothing could be a greater source of joy for your family than your staying in good health. It will make everyone happy. I also hope that your whole family will please cherish you above all. This spirit not only strengthens the bonds of affection among you, it is a source of enduring prosperity for your family. Happiness is not in some faraway place. It is found within the family. Yeah. I know, right? So this is another quote that actually I shared with my sisters, which helped me chant. So this is referring to a while ago when we were first chanting about my brother. So by chanting the 5 characters of the Daimoku, Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, ordinary people, even those presently burdened with problems and sufferings, can shine with the brilliance of the mystic law, just as they are. In terms of the workings of the mystic law, their lives are in no way different from that of the Buddha. This is the penetrating insight of Nichiren Buddhism. People tend to look for the causes of both happiness and misfortune outside of themselves. They search for happiness in some place other than where they are now. But true happiness is not somewhere far away.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. It oddly connects with the other quote about happiness is not somewhere far away. It's found within the family. But,
Yep. It's that idea of like absolute happiness too, right? Happiness is exactly where we are, you know, bringing it out. It's not in all of these other things. First of all, thank you again for sharing. I really appreciate I don't know, it just felt like such a really honest kind of dialogue, and I really appreciate that. And it's just so real. I'm wondering now, to kind of close things up, what advice you would give to someone that's starting their Buddhist practice and they want to change something about their family.
Yeah.
What advice would you give?
Oh, that's a good question. I've thought about this. My advice is to expect to want to give up, because in my Buddhist practice, I can get really excited about a goal that I have, and then the next day feel deflated or not want to do it anymore. I think that that's okay. And in Buddhism and in life, we have to keep redetermining. So if something is a goal of yours within your family, please make that goal. And if you no longer, feel that enthusiasm the next day, that's okay. But you can keep redetermining that goal for your family. And I think it is our human revolution that, allows us to change our lives. So once we let go of changing a person, Buddhism does not allow us to change anyone other than ourselves. Thankfully, the results of changing ourselves, our environments change. But I think that would also be my advice of, the sooner we let go of changing the person in front of us, the sooner we'll be happy